Hey folks, Aaron here. Welcome back to another anime review. Today we're looking at Owari no Seraph, Nagoya Kessen-hen, or, if you need the actual title in English, Seraph of the End, Battle in Nagoya. Now, if you guys haven't seen my first part review, because this is part 2, this is the concluding part of the first season, as they call it, and I think that's the best way to put it. Some people say this is season 2. This is, to me, it's not. It's part 2 of season 1. But if you have not seen my part 1 review, you know, obviously this part's going to have spoilers, so make sure to check that out first. I will leave a link to that video in the description box below so you can go check it out. Now, from here on, spoilers, so expect that from the first season. So Yuichiro's story, or Yu for short, because I hate saying his full name, like it always messes me up. I don't know why. I shouldn't be, like, Yuichiro shouldn't be a hard name for me to say, but sometimes, like, when I'm talking and I'm just flowing, it's one of those words that's, like, throws out there and you're like, oh, crap, I said it wrong. But, so I'm going to just say Yu. Yu's story continues where we learn from the first season, obviously, Mikhaila is still alive, but at the same token, he's a vampire now. And that's definitely an issue. Another issue is that Yu has within him the Seraph of the End, which was apparently done into him as an experiment when he was in the orphanage with his friends way, way beyond this, the beginning of the story. Now, interestingly enough, this causes a lot of internal conflicts. This whole part 2 has a lot of internal conflicts because not only do we have to figure out whose allegiances lie where, will Yu side with his friend, will he save his friend, etc. What's the vampire race doing currently? Why is it that they seem like sometimes they're more human than the humans? There's a whole conflicting storyline. I think that's the point of it, where both races in this part 2 are so messed up. You realize that there is no one good side and one bad side. I think Yu's friends, everyone for that part right there is, they consider the best. And by the way, Shinawa is still best girl of Seraph of the End. I don't care what anyone says. I love that girl. She's awesome. Next off, I do like the added element of seeing Shiawo's sister being an experiment also, and that's kind of what defines the last parts of the actual story. I'm not going to go too far into that, but it's very interesting to see that, and we learn that, guess what? Humans actually in this case might be just as bad as the vampires in many ways. It might be just as bad. So you almost come away with this where going, no side is good or bad. I mean, Shinawa and Yu, their group, is probably the best example of good, and everyone else is kind of questionable. Now, excuse me. What I had issues with is that in the first part of Owari no Seraph of Seraph of the End, everything flowed really well. There was a little bit of comedy, there was a little bit of drama, there was a little bit of action, there was a little bit of, good storytelling, solid narrative. Everything worked perfectly in that. That's why I gave it an A+. I loved it. It was just that good. I loved the opening, I loved the closing. It was awesome. However, part 2 is almost, the best way I could put it is like when you're playing Rock Band on one of the hardest difficulties and missing notes, but you still passed the song, but you missed a lot of notes. Owari no Seraph, I saw when I was talking about it on, on Twitter, where with other people that's seen it, told me that part 2 was the weaker part because it felt rushed. It had various issues with it, and while I try to go into this without that mindset of going, okay, everyone's saying it's rushed, so it must be rushed, I went into that mindset completely blank to only find out that they're correct. And I went back to certain parts of the manga. I didn't spoil myself per se, but I went back to certain parts to see if there was, if things were longer in the manga for those sections. And lo and behold, yes. And by the way, I do plan to read the manga. I actually really love the art for the manga. I checked it out recently, and I'm like, oh shit, where have I been with this? I want to check that out. So I do plan on reading the manga eventually when I can. But Owari no Seraph Part 2 is definitely rushed. And it comes off noticeably during a lot of the fights, during a lot of the major moments of the 12 episodes that we get, where it feels like things are just skipped. It feels like battles are kind of forcibly done really fast, so this way you can't, like, oh, okay, we can move on to the next part. Even the whole plot in Nagoya feels like this kind of, it feels like it should be stretched out a little longer. And I'm not saying, like, make it so it's longer on purpose, per se, but it feels like it should be, like, longer. And it just wraps up really fast. All these battles take place, and you're wondering, what happened? What was happening to this group? What was happening to this group? Where was this person at? What was defined? Why did this fight end this way, etc.? That's the shit that happens in part 2, and it's definitely an issue with it. In terms of, like, in terms of story, yes, part 2 is definitely weaker because it just feels rushed. Is it bad? No, it's not bad by any definition, because I still think all the characters are cool. We get some new characters that are also pretty badass. Gurren, you get a little more of his story, especially if you haven't read the light novels. By the way, I recommend fully, if you are a huge fan of Owari no Seraph and you'd like to read light novels, definitely check out Gurren's story. I read it myself. It's only 3 parts in America. They're pretty long, because apparently in Japan it was like 6. But what they did in America is they put both parts together, so like every 2 is considered 1. So you only get 3. And I'll tell you guys, I really like it. It goes back to when he was younger, and prior to the vampire apocalypse of sorts. But it also shows what happens with the sword, his former lover, why she's even in the story so much, why people think that Gurren's not to be fully trusted. So definitely check that out if you can, because I think it's really good. I just recommend it as a good read. I loved it myself. But it's definitely where a lot of these characters, because of the rush story, kind of fall to the wayside, and you wonder why did they do this way? Were they just maybe time constraint? Like they had to do it this way or what? But it's definitely an issue with it, and I'm kind of sad about that, because it keeps it from being even nearly as close as perfect as the first season. Now, in terms of animation, that's the only thing that has stayed perfect. The animation for Owari no Seraph still is solid. The fight scenes look amazing. Even when they're just talking for a little while, they look solid. I had no issues with that. And, especially seeing Shinoa still. Shinoa is best girl, by the way. I don't care what anyone says. Seeing, everything with those characters and how they looked, it just flowed really well. And I'll tell you, it was pretty visceral sometimes. We had some pretty violent things happen in part 2 in comparison to part 1. So it was interesting to see those, and, the way they were animated was really cool. In terms of music, Hiroyuki Sawada made that perfect opening for first season. Every episode, I didn't skip the opening, because I was like, it pumped you up for the episode. Part 2 doesn't do that. Part 2's opening is not horrible. It's just not anywhere close to Hiroyuki Sawano's level, and it's noticeable. The ending song, however, is pretty good. I like the ending song. I quite often would listen to it just because it's really calm and at the same time really rhythmic. It works so well. And it's weird because you see this background image and it's so simple, everything, and it's done really simple, but it feels like it's a really epic thing. So I definitely I recommend checking out the ending song just if you want to listen to that on the side. It's really good. But in anything else I could say about lasting appeal or enjoyment, I enjoyed Owari no Seraph, Battle Nagoya, and by the way, I just used the title in English and Japanese. I did that multiple times during a lot of these takes. This is my several take of this review, but I've been doing that. I don't know why. I think in my head I'm trying to put them together. But overall, I did still enjoy part 2. I think part 2 was solid nonetheless. It wasn't perfect. It's not. I'm telling you guys right now, it's not an A. It's not an A. But it still was enjoyable, and I think that the reviews for it are a little harsh sometimes. I think that if you love the first season, you're gonna definitely love part 2, or I want to say first season, part 1. You know what I mean? That's why I see. But I hate when people say it's season 1, season 2. It's not season 1, season 2. It's part 1, part 2. It makes sense because it's 24 episodes if you really think about it. So that makes it just one long season. But whatever. But part 2 is definitely not as strong as the first part, and that's definitely where Owari no Seraph, Battle in Nagoya kind of falls to the wayside a little bit. That's why if I had to review Owari no Seraph, Nagoya Kessen-hen, which is the real title for it, or Seraph of the End, Battle in Nagoya, from an A through F, I'm going to give it a B+. I think that it's still a great show. It's still amazing. I still loved it, but it's just not nearly as good as the first part. And while the ending stuff does save it, the ending fight scene was amazing. By the way, I'm telling you guys and girls, the ending fight is awesome. So visually strong. It's Wit Studio's best thing. When they pump their animation up, they pump it up. But it's just that it ends even on a kind of abrupt note, and it just makes this whole thing feel rushed. And that's definitely not a good thing for a story. It kind of destroys the rhythm of a story. And again, 12 episodes, you might think that's a long thing, but at the same time, when you have so many parts skipped, it just doesn't make sense. They should have made it, if they were going to do this, made it 15 episodes or something longer, just to give you a little more things with it. But like I said, it's still enjoyable. B+ is still a great score. Anyways, guys and girls, I hope you enjoyed this review. I'm sorry I got so late with this, because I know it's been a while, probably several weeks, but I had to put off Owari no Seraph for a little while, only because I was so busy with other stuff in my life and stuff, and it just was in general kind of hard for me to review, so I do apologize for that, but hopefully you guys enjoyed it. As always, guys and girls, if you did enjoy my review, please think about hitting that subscribe button, sharing the video around, and commenting. Definitely check out my Patreon for various rewards and stuff, and I try to put rewards on there. I really don't do a good job of it. But check out if you want to support my channel a little bit. You know, even $1 helps me out. You don't need to do it, by the way. There's no like, oh my god, I need them. I don't need any YouTube money. Trust me, it's not a big deal to me. But I'm just saying it helps me out just in general, like extra money. You know, buy more anime, review more anime. I'm working on Gate next, by the way, so Gate should be reviewed probably in the next like month or two, hopefully. We'll see what happens with that. Anyways, guys and girls, until our paths cross again in the next review, God bless you all. I hope you have a good day. Bye bye, everyone.